You were taught to be nice, to be polite, to be accommodating. You were told, maybe not in words, but in consequences, that your safety, your worth, your acceptance, all depended on being agreeable, not rocking the boat, not making people uncomfortable. So you learned the art of pleasing. You became a master at sensing what others needed, even when they didn't say it. You adjusted, smiled, apologized, compromised, and disappeared over and over again, just to be accepted, just to feel safe. But let me ask you something. Are you safe now? Are you fulfilled? Do you feel whole? Because if you're honest, really honest, you'll admit something feels off. Something inside you feels stretched thin, like your soul's been trying to whisper, "This isn't me. This isn't working. This isn't living." But the fear speaks louder. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of becoming the villain in someone else's story. So you keep playing the role. The good son, the patient friend, the agreeable coworker, the partner who never says what they truly need. And every time you silence yourself, you lose a little more of who you are. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, fatally. Carl Jung warned us about this. He said, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." But that tragedy doesn't start in old age. It starts the moment you abandon your authenticity in favor of belonging. And here's the real twist. People don't love you for who you truly are. They love you for the role you play in their story. As long as you perform, you are accepted. The moment you stop, the masks begin to fall, and you see something terrifying. Most relationships you've built were never with you. They were with your persona, your mask, your performance. And when you stop pleasing others, everything starts to change. The warmth you gave so freely is suddenly called selfish. Your boundaries become rude. Your silence becomes aggressive. Your truth becomes too much. But what if I told you? This is not a breakdown. This is not failure. This is initiation, a sacred breaking, a violent awakening, a psychic rebellion. Because before you can be free, you must be willing to be disliked. And that right there is where your real life begins. Carl Jung didn't just explore the surface of human behavior. He dove straight into the underworld of the psyche. He saw what most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid. That beneath our social masks, the nice guy, the people pleaser, the peacemaker, lurks an exiled force. Something raw, uncompromising, untamed. He called it the shadow. Your shadow is everything you were told not to be. It's the rage you suppressed when you were told to calm down, the desires you buried to be good, the truths you swallowed just to keep the peace. It's the no you never said, the tears you never cried, the fire you never let burn. And the more you repress this shadow, the more it controls you from the dark. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You'll think you just attract draining relationships. You'll think you're just too sensitive. You'll think you're bad at setting boundaries, but none of that is true. What's really happening is this. You are unconsciously handing over your power to others in exchange for acceptance. You're not being kind. You're being controlled. You're not being compassionate. You're being compliant. You're not being mature. You're being manipulated. And it's not always obvious. The people you please the most might be the ones smiling the widest. They may never raise their voice. They may never explicitly demand anything, because they don't have to. Your psyche was trained to bend before they even asked. This is the invisible architecture of a life built around pleasing others, what Jung called the tyranny of the persona. The persona is the mask we wear to fit in, to be liked, to survive, and it serves a purpose until it doesn't. Because here's the paradox. The more you identify with your mask, the more you abandon yourself. And the self, your true self, doesn't care about being liked. It doesn't care about roles or reputations. It doesn't play by the rules of social contracts. It wants wholeness, not approval. It wants truth, not performance. It wants freedom, even if that means war. And when the self awakens, it begins to dismantle everything you built from fear. The friendships that were based on silence, the family dynamics that thrived on your guilt, the career you chose to earn praise, not peace, the romantic bonds rooted in self-abandonment. You'll watch it all start to unravel, not because you're broken, but because you're finally getting free. This is the real work of individuation, not becoming perfect, but becoming whole. And that requires a death. The death of the pleaser, the death of the mask, the death of the false self you've mistaken for you. And like every death, It will be mourned by those who can no longer use you, by those who fear your wholeness, by the parts of you still terrified to stand alone, but something else will be born in its place. Not a harder you, not a colder you, but a truer you. Let's stop pretending. Let's stop pretending that you're okay. That keeping the peace hasn't cost you pieces of yourself. That biting your tongue hasn't left you bleeding internally. That saying yes when you meant no hasn't become a reflex so strong you don't even notice it anymore. You do notice it. You notice it when you can't sleep. You notice it in the quiet resentment building under your smile. You notice it when you look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. You thought that being agreeable would bring you love, that if you made yourself easy to be around, you'd finally feel seen. That if you kept being what they needed, someone, anyone, would finally stop and ask what you need. But they don't, because they don't see you. They see the version of you that never says no. They see the helper, the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who's fine with anything. And maybe you've spent your whole life trying to earn a kind of love that doesn't require you to disappear first. But let me ask you this. What if the love you're trying to earn with obedience isn't love at all? What if it's dependency? What if it's convenience? What if the only reason they keep you around is because you've made it easy for them to never confront themselves? Let that land. How many times have you apologized just to end the argument? How many times have you swallowed your truth to keep the relationship? How many times have you tolerated disrespect and called it maturity? And each time, something inside you whispered, "This isn't love. This is survival." You weren't raised to have a voice. You were raised to have a function. You became the emotional buffer, the absorber of pain, the one who sensed danger in the room before it had a name. You learned to read facial expressions like weather patterns, to know when it was safe to speak, to shrink fast when someone else got loud. And now you don't even know when you're angry. Now you smile when you're breaking. Now you say it's okay when it absolutely is not. But the body keeps score, the soul keeps score, and one day, the bill comes due. It shows up in anxiety, in fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix, in explosive anger that catches you off guard, in grief you can't trace to any one moment because it's made of 1,000 small betrayals you committed against yourself. And maybe no one around you has noticed because you're so good at pretending. But I see you, and I need you to hear this. You are not wrong for wanting to stop pleasing everyone. You are not selfish for wanting to breathe. You are not broken because you're finally waking up. You are rising, and yes, it will hurt. You will lose people. You will be called cold. You will be accused of changing. But the truth is, you're not changing. You're returning. Returning to the parts of you that were never allowed to exist. The wild parts, the truthful parts, the sacred, unpleasing, inconvenient, magnificent parts. And when you stop betraying yourself to be digestible to others, you begin to taste freedom. You've spent years shaping yourself into what others needed. Now, what if you started shaping yourself into what you actually are? What if peace wasn't the absence of conflict, but the presence of self? See, we were taught that pleasing others is noble, that sacrifice is love, that silence is maturity. But Jung saw through that lie. He saw that when you deny your inner truth long enough, your soul begins to rebel, not with rage, not with violence, but with emptiness, with a numbness that no distraction can fill, with a quiet ache that says, "This life isn't mine." And if you're feeling that ache, that subtle but relentless discomfort in your chest, that hunger for something you can't quite name, that's not weakness. That is yourself, knocking on the door, the true you, the one beneath the mask, the one you left behind in exchange for belonging. But now you're older, wiser, a little more tired of performing. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to open that door. You don't need to burn your life down to become real. You don't need to shout, to prove, to explain, to fight. You just need to stop leaving yourself behind. In the smallest moments, in the subtle decisions, in the quiet thoughts where you abandon what's true just to avoid discomfort. Jung didn't say, "Be fearless." He said, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration." So this isn't about becoming some new person. It's about becoming whole again, reclaiming the parts of you that were silenced, grieving the time you lost, and choosing today to live without abandoning yourself ever again. Will it be easy? Number. It will be lonely at times, but it won't be empty, because something strange happens when you stop people-pleasing. You start attracting people who want the real you, not the version of you who performs, not the version who bends, not the agreeable ghost, but the honest, grounded, unapologetic self. That's when connection becomes real. That's when love becomes honest. That's when your life begins to feel like yours. And the best part? You won't need to convince anyone anymore. You won't need to beg for space. You'll simply walk into rooms, whole, and the ones who recognize you will stay. The rest, let them go, because you are finally coming home. There's a version of you, buried beneath the guilt, the shame, the people-pleasing reflex, who is not afraid to be misunderstood, who speaks when it's uncomfortable, who stands tall even when others withdraw their affection. That version of you was never lost, just exiled, hidden beneath layers of being good. But now, you're remembering. You're remembering that your truth is not too much, that your no does not need a justification, that your presence, even without pleasing, apologizing, or bending, is enough. You're remembering that the people who truly love you don't need you to shrink. And as you let go of the masks, yes, things will fall away. But listen to me. What falls away was never yours. What remains is real. So stand in your truth. Even if your voice shakes, even if the room goes silent, even if the world around you doesn't know what to do with someone who no longer lives to be approved. Because the moment you stop pleasing others, you stop betraying yourself. And hey, if you've been feeling stuck in emotional loops, struggling with inner conflict, or sensing there's a part of you you've never fully understood, you're not alone in that. This guide we've put together dives deep into exactly that. It'll help you understand why certain patterns keep repeating, face the hidden parts of yourself you've been avoiding, begin real emotional healing and self-integration, reconnect with your true, undiluted self. If any of that speaks to something you've been quietly carrying, check the first pinned comment under this video. It might be exactly what your soul has been needing. No pressure, no rush, just when you're ready. And if you felt seen here, if this resonated on a soul level, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Seriously, thank you for being here, for listening, for feeling this with me. I know how hard it is to walk this path, but I promise you, it's worth it. Until next time, take care of your truth and keep coming home to yourself.